Welcome, gentlemen. How are you? A good time. Many weeks ago, David Spiegel sent out an essay from HEGYONEI HALACHA called AKEIDAH Shofar, and you might find this on page 198. And we started it last week, but we only accomplished just a few lines, so today we want to move on. Rav Saadia Gaon is quoted by the Avudraham and enumerates 10 different reasons for the blowing of shofar. Now, these reasons come under the category of Tamei Akrov, Tamei Mitzvahs. It's only speculation. We can never ever claim to really know why Hashem commanded us to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. As the Rambam writes, it's Gzeres HaKos. That's Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. But Rav Saadia Gaon boldly lists 10 different reasons. And in this essay, we're going to focus our attention on 2 out of the 10. Actually, in the list, it's the 3rd and the 6th. And try to find a connection between the 2. The 3rd reasoning on the list is because of the shofar of the Isle of Yitzchak on the AKEIDAH, after the AKEIDAH. And the 6th reasoning is the shofar of Maiman Har Sinai, as the pasuk tells us, "V'kol shofar chazak miod." At the time of Har Sinai, when we received the mitzvahs, the shofar blew very loud blasts. And what we have here is the reasoning of Hashem reminding himself, or we reminding ourselves, of Akedas Yitzchak and of Har Sinai. So our subject for today is how to relate those 2, integrate them into one connecting whole, such that they're not just haphazard. Here connected Akedas Yitzchak, and this one connected Har Sinai. There's got to be something that brings them together. And in fact, we could add another reasoning for shofar, perhaps, although it's not explicit here in this essay, we can integrate that, and that is the shofar liyosid lavo, that will declare and will announce Bias HaMashiach and the Achris Hayom. Our study today will take us to various midrashim and see if the midrashim could connect together Akedas Yitzchak with Har Sinai, to find a connection between them. The Medrash tells us, and Rashi actually quotes this Medrash in his Perush HaTorah in Shmos Yutes Pasuk Yud Gimel, and this is a Medrash brought down in Pirkei Rabbi Lezer. HaShofar sheshmiya kolo b'maimen Har Sinai, that very shofar that was blowing in Har Sinai, nilkach, was taken mina ayil, from the horn of the ram shehikriv Avram tachas Yitzchak. So that very same shofar that was attached to the body of the ayil, the Elo Shel Yitzchak, that's the shofar which was blown at Har Sinai. A magical kind of shofar that lasted so many generations. But once again, we have here in this Medrash a clear-cut connection between Akedas Yitzchak and Elo Shel Yitzchak and Har Sinai. Rabbi Chanina ben Dostoi Omer, this is the language of the Medrash that we refer to. Oso ha'ayil lo yotza mimenu davar levatol. Rabbi Chanina starts with a premise, and he goes ahead to try to clarify that premise. His premise is that every single part of the ayil had a function. Nothing in the ayil was levatola wasted. Everything was used. Now the ayil has, of course, two horns, one on the right side and one on the left. Shel Smol, the one from the left, who calls Shofar, Shenishma Behar Sinai, Dafka from the left side. We'll have to see why. The Keren Shel Yamin, but the horn on the right side of the ayil Shel Yitzchak, which is the stronger side, will be designated for the Shofar of Moshiach. Li Asid Lavo B'Kibbutz Golios. Shenemar V'Hoyo, this is in Yeshaya's Navi, V'Hoyo B'Yomahu Yitaka B'Shofar Gadol. Which is the Shofar Gadol? The Shofar taken from the Keren Yamin on the right side. But which Shofar is it? It's the Shofar of Elo Shel Yitzchak. Clearly indicating that we are connecting all the generations together from that of Avram through Har Sinai and all the way to the Achros Hayomim V'Hoya Bayomahu on that day. And it's one shofar that traverses all of Jewish history. But again, we still back to that question. We still don't understand what is the connection between the Elo Shel Yitzchak and Har Sinai. That the same shofar from the Elo Shel Yitzchak would be blown at Har Sinai. In this essay by Rav Mirsky, he quotes a Gemara in Brachos that might shed a light on this. You'll be the jury. I don't want to prejudice you one way or the other. I have doubts as to whether or not the Medrash had this in mind, but the Gemara says in Brachos, in the name of Rav Asi, that Nasa lo mitzvah achas yosa mitzvah cheres. The Gemara is talking about a case where he set up a pas for Erev Tchumen, Erev Chatzeros, excuse me, and he's on Shabbos in the afternoon when he's ready to sit down at Suda Shlishis, he's going to take that pas, which was designated for Erev Chatzeros, and he's going to use it for the Suda Shlishis. And this is a principle called Kevan Shenasta Bo Mitzvah Achas is Roy Lahosiv Lishtamish Bo Mitzvah Cheres. Now, obviously, Rav Mirsky is not meaning this in a very literal sense. You know, you can't tell me that the shofar of the ayil Shel Yitzchak, which is blown at Har Sinai, is in order to do another mitzvah with that shofar. What he means is the concept, right? We're not blowing a shofar at Har Sinai as a mitzvah shofar, you understand? But the concept that a hefzer shel mitzvah should be used multiple times, like for example, you may remember that for Sreifas Chometz, we gathered together some of the oil that was left over on Hanukkah, or we gathered together the Daled Minim from Sukkot and use that as fuel for the fire. Because once it was used for a mitzvah, we want to use it for another mitzvah. It's almost as if the mitzvah impacts on the object and makes it into a personality, and that personality cries out for another mitzvah. as the Gemara says about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he had an insatiable desire for mitzvahs. Even when it came to Ir Miklat, before the end of his life, you remember the Gemara Makis, he designated 3 out of the 6 cities. Oiv kesef lo yizban. Oiv mitzvahs lo yizban mitzvahs. And that applies now to a physical object. So we're going to take the bread from an Erev Chatzeris, and we're going to make another bracha on it. Besides the bracha of Erevin, we're going to make a bracha of Hamotzi Lechem in Aretz at the Suda Shabbos. And therefore, he says, we're going to blow the same shofar that was the Elo Shel Yitzchak at Har Sinai. But again, you can't take this literally. No one's going to tell me, maybe you'll tell me, I don't know, I can't think of anyone who would tell me that the shofar of Elo Shel Yitzchak or the shofar of Har Sinai was a mitzvah, was a chefta shel mitzvah in the strict sense. And since they did a mitzvah with the shofar shel El Yitzchak, therefore we do another mitzvah, we blow the shofar at Har Sinai. I can't believe that. It doesn't make any sense to me. But what it means is that once you impact on a chefetz and uplift it, the universe is the divine universe. It's all a revelation of divinity, and every object can be sanctified. And that's what man is here for, to take the physical finite world and sanctify it. So once you've sanctified the object, it's already kadosh. Now use it for something else. Not for another mitzvah in this case, but to blow at Har Sinai. If you like it, take it. It's up to you. I'm not trying to prejudice you. I'm just trying to tell you, I personally don't buy into this. So now we're going to start the essay itself. All that was just background introduction. And we are on page 199 with the main paragraph, Masehem. And now we're going to really sink our teeth and try to get an understanding of what the AKEIDAH was all about and how it set the tone and prepared the karka for Har Sinai. That's going to be big. So the fact that the shofar of Har Sinai is the shofar of Elo Shel Yitzchak is going to produce an in-depth connection between 2 glorious episodes. The episode of Avram and Yitzchak at the AKEIDAH and the acceptance of the Torah by Klal Yisrael Har Sinai. And what's going to connect between the 2 in a physical sense? It's the shofar. The shofar of Akedas Yitzchak is the shofar of Har Sinai. But what's the thematic, conceptual connection between the 2? Now we're going to try to draw a plan, a picture, that without the AKEIDAH, there could not have been Har Sinai. That the essence of Har Sinai is influenced and impact, and shall we say, set up by the AKEIDAH. And that puts the AKEIDAH in a whole different perspective. And we're going to begin to appreciate why we take a ram's horn as a shofar, when the Mishnah says, call our shofar sheru, but we want the shofar of an ayil. Why is that so important? What is it about the Yom Adin? What is it about the judgment of Hashem on Rosh Hashanah that we want to bring that shofar to blow it on Rosh Hashanah? Which shofar? It's the shofar of Elo Shel Yitzchak. It's the shofar of Har Sinai on a conceptual basis. And what's going to be developed in this essay is an insight of Reb Chaim Volozhin built on one single word. Yeah, that both sides. we're going to build an entire structure here to explain the Shofar Shel Elul Shel Yitzchak and its connection to the Shofar of Har Sinai, all based on Reb Chaim Volozhin's diuk regarding one word in the Mishnah, and it's a word of 3 letters, a very short and sweet word. What bothered Reb Chaim about that word? And he built an entire structure around it. Reb Chaim was bothered because if you take a look in the Mishnayos in Avos, you will find Avram's name mentioned over and over again. For example, Asara Doros Minoach Viad Avram. And that Mishnah goes on to say that for those 10 generations between Noach and Avram, the world was bereft, was empty of any spirituality, any divinity, any knowledge of God. It was all avodah zarah. And then the Mishnah says, Ad sheba Avram v'natal scharku. Avram. No adjectives, no descriptions, just the word Avram. And then, in that very same chapter, we fast forward to Mishnah Gimel, Asara Nisyonos, Nisnase Avram, etc. But I skipped one word. Avram Avinu. Okay, I made a mistake. I said 3 letters, so let's count it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters. Sorry. Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, I don't understand. The Mishnah mentions Avram's name time in and time out. And here, when we get to the Eser Nisyonos, all of a sudden, the Mishnah has a different name, an appellation, a description, a Torah, that it adds to Avram's name, and that is Avinu. Avram, our father. You could read these Mishnayos and just blink, and you won't even notice it. And Reb Chaim Volozhin notices that Reb Yehuda Nasi, when he authored the Mishnah, he added another word here in describing Avram. Avram Avinu. Why? Says Reb Chaim, a new pshat in Maisa Avos Simon Lebanon. Not the classic pshat that we know from the Ramban, who repeats it over and over again, that the Maisa Avos will engrave Jewish history with a certain, the Maisa Avos are harbingers of what's going to happen down the line in Jewish history. Forget about that right now. Leave that on the side. Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, what does it mean, Maisa Avos Sima Lebanim? Maisav who limud lebanim. Do you hear this, Rabbosai? Limud lebanim. A father is obligated to teach his son. When we call Avram Avinu, what we indicate is that Maisa Avos limud lebanim. Avram Avinu is going to teach us. He's going to enlighten us and instruct us how to serve Hashem. Our entire legacy of Avodas Hashem comes from Avram Avinu. And what's the Avinu? The fact that Maisa Avos Simon Lebanim, that if we watch and observe the Maisa Avos, we have a Simon to learn Torah, how to emulate the Avos. And that's called Simon Lebanim. Now, Reb Chaim goes on to prove this thesis based on a pasuk in Mishlei. We'll get to that later because, honestly, I don't see what Reb Chaim saw in the pasuk in Mishlei. But be that as it may, let's talk about the following. The AKEIDAH is perhaps the greatest of all the 10 nisyonos. It's the culmination of everything. And Avram, says Reb Chaim Volozhin, is Avram Avinu. And therefore, Avram is going to teach us at the Akedah, Maisa Avos Limud Lebanim. And if we learn the lesson from the Akedah of Avram Avinu, then we're at Har Sinai. We will achieve Har Sinai only because, because of Avram. What's the next word, everybody? Avinu. Maisa Avos Limud Lebanim. The limud of Avram Avinu Lebanim is going to make it feasible, make it possible for us to stand at Har Sinai and declare Nasem and Ishmael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a statement. Mi gilo lebanai razeh. I don't even understand. How is it possible that flesh and mortal man would understand these lessons that Avram is going to teach? And as a result of Avram's teachings, we reach the apex of all of Jewish history, that very majestic gesture on the part of Klal Yisrael, Nasem and Ishmael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, which angels came down from heaven to reveal the secret to Bnei Yisrael of Nasem and Ishmael? So again, just to get the pattern of Mishnais, when the Mishnah is talking about Avram and telling us historical facts about Avram, then it's going to just say the word Avram without any appellation, any addition of Avinu. So, for example, Asar Doros Minoach Liad Avram. But when the Mishnah is addressing Eser Nisyonos and Isnasebaim, then it becomes Avram Avinu, because each one of these Aseres Nisyonos is going to teach Klal Yisrael a different attribute, a different dimension of Avodas Hashem. So we would have plenty of work to do and a lot of research to do, both to try to understand Rav Saadia Gaon's 10 reasons for Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and to try to explain how the 10 nisyonos of Avram Avinu, each one in its own unique way, had an impact on Klal Yisrael. But we're going to focus on one particular nisyon, and perhaps the greatest of all nisyonos, and the Akeidah. What does the Akeidah teach? And why does Maisa Avos Sima Lebanim, in the case of the Akeidah, give us Avram Avinu? And in the light of our answer, to connect the shofar of the Elul Shel Yitzchak with the shofar of Har Sinai. And we're now on page 200. Reb Chaim Volozhin quotes a pasuk in Mishlei. You'll see it here on line 4. In the 20th parak of Mishlei. Mishalech betumo tzaddik, ashrei banav ach. Ashrei means fortunate. How fortunate is he who could be described as mishalech betumo, tzaddik, and ashrei banav ach. Obviously, this pasuk puts a tremendous emphasis on halicha, right? It opens mishalech. And then it continues with the word tumo. What does the word tumo mean? Tumo is a remez to the derech halicha. We are going to learn from Avram Avinu derech halicha. Mishalech betumo, Tzaddik. Avram Avinu, and we'll soon see Yitzchak, represent the mishalech betumo. He goes betmimus, tamim tiyem Hashem Elokecha, and he's a tzaddik. Reb Chaim Volozhin asks the question, how is it possible that untold countless numbers of Jews throughout history were willing to give up their lives, Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem? Not only that, we find that rank and file Jews, not the great leaders, were willing to give up their lives al Kiddush Hashem. And the answer is that every Jew has within him Avram Avinu, a shtick, a little bit of an Avram Avinu. There's a teva, I would call it the spiritual genealogy. There's a cell or a gene in the Jewish spirit that's passed on from generation to generation from Avram Avinu. And that's called Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. Again, every single one of the 10 nisyonos is going to break new ground in that halicha that we spoke about. But right now we're focused on the halicha to the AKEIDAH. He mentions in a note over here that the halicha to Eretz Yisrael throughout the generations is based on Avram's test of Lech Lecha, and Avram Avinu leaves everything behind and he goes to Eretz Yisrael. So Abosai, I'm warning you here. Next time you hear Lech Lecha, the parsha, get the message. I'm a big shot. I spent 2 years in Toronto, 2 years in Kew Garden Hills, Queens, New York. So I'm the big shot, right? You know, Burzon wanted you to practice what you preach. But Lech Lecha means that this is an Nisayon of Avram Avinu that's going to engrave in the spiritual genetics of Klal Yisrael the ability to make the craziest decision in your life to settle in Eretz Yisrael. Does it make any sense? Right? I got plenty of things to do in Chutz La'aretz. Taking care of family, raising a family, creating a business, whatever business you're in. Maybe you had a house and you wrecked it in order to rebuild it. I don't know, there are plenty of things to do in Chutz La'aretz. And not only that, you got Canada Day, and you're off on Sundays. You know, I can go on and on. Rabosa, you want excuses from Burzon for why you're living in Canada? I'm not cheap about it. I give you free of charge. I'll give you a whole bunch of reasons. But Reb Chaim Volozhin is telling us that the halicha to Eretz Yisrael is something that's ingrained in our genetic code from Lech Lecha of Avram Avinu. He is Avinu. It's Maisa Avos Limud Lebanim. And Avram Avinu gives up everything, his reputation, and goes out on a trek to Eretz Canaan, Lech Lecha Me'artzecha, etc., etc. So if you talk about Klal Yisrael as a tree, as an Ilan, the shoresh, the roots are here in the Avos, and especially in Avram Avinu. Whatever sprouts comes from Avram Avinu. Because Avram Avinu is going to teach us. And we're going to be able to reach the highest level, the greatest majestic gesture in Jewish history, Nasa v'nishma at Har Sinai. And why is that so? Hashem says to Avram Avinu, Kachnos bincha. Wait a minute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you just told me, Ki b'Yitzchak yikari l'chazara. I have Avtacha from the Eibishter that Yitzchak is going to be the progenitor and the next link in the glorious chain of Klal. So now you're telling me to take him and shecht him on the AKEIDAH? And Avram Avinu Shvaik, he says nothing. Chazal tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Mi gila lebanai rozeh, who revealed to my children that secret of Nasa v'nishma. That's a secret to commit yourselves to Asiyah before you even nishma. You don't even know what you're committing yourself to. That's a secret that Klal Yisrael could have possibly learned from the angels. Only the angels in heaven, who are called Giborei Koach, Osei Ritzono. David HaMelech describes the Malachim as Osei Ritzono. They fulfill the will, the mandate, the mission of God. They don't understand why. No questions asked. Nasa v'nishma? Are you nuts? How can you commit yourself to an entire book of morality, of commandments, and you don't even know what's in it? The same question we're going to ask Avram Avinu. How can you accept the divine command of the AKEIDAH after Hashem promised you, Ki b'Yitzchak yikar l'chazon? Says l'chsam Shofar, Avram Avinu and Yitzchak understood Seder HaKarbonos. They built a Mizbeach over and over again, and they knew that on the Mizbeach we bring animals, we bring vegetation, we bring menachas, but we don't bring a human being on a Mizbeach. Avram and Yitzchak understood very well what the purpose of a Mizbeach is, what is its yi'ud and its designation, and it's certainly not dedicated for a human being. In fact, the Medrash tells us that Avram Avinu was the fighter against human sacrifice, which was apparently very common at the time of Avram Avinu in the paganistic society of Avodah Zarah that was rampant at the time of Avram Avinu. So here's Avram Avinu, who is fighting a battle against human sacrifice. And that's the essence of Avram's Torah and his teachings. And now Hashem tells him, take your son Yitzchak and be makriv him on the Mizbeach. You know, if Avram Avinu thought at one moment in his life that Hashem wants a human sacrifice, why didn't he take Yishmael? Yishmael was 13 years older. Obviously, Avram Avinu felt that this is the essence of idol worship. In the Torah, it's called Molech, to take your son on the Mizbeach. So Avram Avinu fights a battle against Avodah Zarah that's antithetical to his shita. And Samuel, not our best friend, right? He's the personification of the Yetzer Hara, comes to Avram Avinu, and he says to him, how could you do such a thing? You're on the way to the AKEIDAH. You're the one who gave tochacha to the entire generation, castigating them for idol worship, for bringing human sacrifices. You were the one who said, Gavis b'nechem yisarfu b'yesh Eloheim, and now you're going to do that very same action that you pontificated against, that you gave your entire essence of your Torah to fight against the battle of human sacrifice. Now you yourself are going to bring a human sacrifice. Avraham Avinu's heart was overflowing with questions. But he's on his way to the Akeidah. It's interesting, after the Akeidah, the Malach comes out and says, Al tishlach yodcha lana, val taslo ma'um, ki ata yadati ki yireh l'kilat. Rabbi Yavo, in the Medrash, in Parshas Noach, Amar Avraham l'Kadosh Baruch Hu, Afaresh lefanecha sichi. I want to explain to you my confusions. Esmol amarto li ki v'yitzchak yorel chazar. Chazarto amarto li kachas b'ncha. And achshav atom li al tishla yod kalanar. Like get it straight over here. Says Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim Brisker, why is it that at this point in time, only after the Malach tells him al tishla yodcha, then Avraham Avinu asks all his kashas? But the answer is that Avraham Avinu gives us a derech and teaches us avodas haboreh. Go be mekayim v'mitzvah Hashem. Now's not the right time to ask questions. Find the time that's mukshar for all your shelos and kushos and ask your question. That's the derech avodah. First, be mekayim v'tzivui Hashem. Then, you have kashas, ask your kashas. And now comes Maimon Har Sinai. Maimon Har Sinai has Esim and Los Haseh, Nasev and Ishma for both the positive and the negative commandments. All this was part of the legacy of Avram at Akedah Yitzchak. Says the Malbim, in Akedah Yitzchak there was an essay and a Los Haseh. The essay was Haleu Shom Liola, and the Los Haseh was Al Tishlach Yodcha Lana. Which of the two, the essay or the Los Haseh, was a greater challenge? Knee-jerk response. Intuition. Obviously, the greater challenge is Haleu Shom Liola. Says the Malbim name. Pum Faker. The greatest challenge to Avraham Avinu is Al Tishlach Yodcha Lana. Why? The Ikar Nisayon of Avraham Avinu at the Akedah, says the Malbim, is Levatel Daito B'fnei Ritzon Hashem. This is the challenge. You have no benefit, no pleasure from taking your son and shechting him at the Akedah. Here, Avraham Avinu is pure l'shem shamayim. Everything he does is below pniya, below revach, below toelis, no personal gain. So Avraham Avinu is Mekayim, the first of the two mitzvahs, the essay, and he brings Yitzchak on top of the Akedah, on top of the mizbeh. Avraham Avinu overcomes the natural tendency, the teva ha'adam, the ava for bimcha yichud. And this is what we call kvishas racham, pure l'shem shamayim. The kavan of Avram for the mitzvah aseh is pure. It's unadulterated. It's tahora utzrufa l'shem shamayim bilvad. He cannot have any added mixture of gain over here by taking his son on the Akedah. But the second mitzvah, the lotas, that's much more complicated. How do you accomplish al taslo ma'uma with a pure kavana, no vested interest, no benefits, l'shem shamayim? That's impossible. A man loves his son, Asher Ahavta, and now the Malach tells him, Al Taslo Me'uma, take him down from the Akeidah. Surely, that's a very simple mitzvah to fulfill. Name, says the Malbim. Sorach l'shem kach gvuras hanefesh gedola lidchok es regishosav lebal yisarvu shum regesh b'kiyum mitzvah. God tells me al taslo me'uma. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Am I going to do it because I love my son? That's the challenge. Avram Avinu has to do it with a pure, unadulterated l'shem shamayim kavana. If that, he has to overcome his natural love for his son, says the Malach. And he proves it. Because Chazal say that Avram Avinu said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let me make a siman. Let me make a little incision. What father, with the love of a son, would ask to make an incision in his son's throat? Obviously, Avram Avinu is purely l'shem shamayim. He wants to make the mitzvah in its perfect way. Says the Malbim, the last pasuk in the Akeidah, Ata yodati, ki yirei Elokim ata, v'lo chasachtas bimcha. You sublimated your love for your son twice. Number one, that you were willing to take him on the Akeidah, and number two, to take him down from the Akeidah without any motivation, any admixture of the love of a father for the son. Says the Malbim, these two mitzvos integrate to form one whole of the Esim and the Losasim, in which Avram Avinu engraves in our genetic code the ability to recite and declare Na'aseh v'nishma for both mitzvahs haseh and mitzvahs losas. And now we're up to page 203 for anyone who's following the text. What is the challenge of mitzvahs losas? I understand the challenge of mitzvah say, to do a mitzvah say l'shem shamayim with a pure, unadulterated kavana tahora utzrufa. But what about a lotas? You know what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me, don't eat shkatzim, v'ramasim, don't eat behemoths tmeis. I've said this to you 1,000,001 times. You pass, as I did in my childhood, Baruch Hashem, I don't see it here, I pass a seafood restaurant, and sometimes they show you the lobster live in the pool of water. You know what I'm talking about? You've seen it? I'm sure there's some Canadians that do this too. Who wants to eat lobster? Omar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, minayin shelo yomar adami efshi b'basar chazir. I don't want to eat this pork. If you've ever been to Spain, for example, they have these stands. They put the pork here and there. If you've ever been to Thailand, they put all the bugs. It's crazy. Rabbits, I don't know what they eat there. Hopefully not bats. Al yomar adami efshi b'basar chazir. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. I don't want to eat this tray for food. Ella, efshi. I really would like to violate the Torah, chas v'shalom. Umar esa. But what can I do? Avinu sheshamayim gozer olai kach v'kach. This means that in a lotaseh, I have an even greater challenge. Not to avoid the lotaseh because it's repulsive to me, because my natural intuitive instincts, but to avoid the lotaseh because Hashem commanded it. And that's what we get from Avram Avinu. Al tishlach yodcha lana. Where does Yitzchak fit into this whole picture? And after all, it's the ram of Yitzchak that's connected to our Sinai. Abba, Bachar ani. I'm unmarried. Maybe he means Bachar, I'm young, I'm a young man. V'chosheshani shema yizdazeh gufi mipachad shel asaki. I'm going to see that knife coming down, and maybe I'll jump. Vetzarecha, and I'll cause you tzar, because now you have to really, force me. Shemeti pasla shchita. Maybe if I jump around, the shchita won't be a kosher shchita. V'lo tala l'karban. Ela kafteni yafa yafa, tie me down. This is what we call AKEIDAH. AKEIDAH is miloshin binding. Yitzchak had a 1,000,001 questions. Surely Yitzchak didn't understand what this was all about. This entire enterprise of the AKEIDAH was prohibited by everything that Avram taught, all his teachings, his preaching. But Gam Yitzchak bitel as daito b'fnei tzivui. But here it's an additional element of challenge. He didn't get the tzivui directly. He heard it from Avram. He didn't even have doubts about it. Says L'chsam Shofar. Al Avram efshein zumin atema kol kach shelo hirach tzivui Hashem lefish Avram shomas tzivui mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'yatzma. So Avraham Avinu was not going to be learning the sugya and asking his kashas and full of questions and confusions because he heard the tzivah from Hashem. Like Noah, how long can you tread water? Uma yahar al pi Hashem. He heard it from pi Hashem. Aval Yitzchak hatmiya gedola. Yitzchak lo shomas hatzivah pi Hashem. He never heard it from Hashem. Avraham amar lo. And now Yitzchak is challenged to have total faith. Emunah b'shel Avram. Have the same level of emunah as Avram, as if Yitzchak himself had heard the words of the tzivui directly from Hashem. And the pasuk says, "Vayelchu shneim yachdav." Yachdav means that they both had the same level, the darg of emunah. And Yitzchak has to really fight to reach that emunah, since he didn't have the tzivui from Hashem. But Ben Bachai writes in his Pirush on the parsha of the AKEIDAH, Rabim Shalu, Eze mehem gadol kocho. Who has a greater koach, Avram or Yitzchak? If Avram bo lishchot es beno biyadov, wow, that's a challenge. Or Yitzchak, maybe Yitzchak's challenge is even greater. Shemafkir atzmo lehari. He allows himself to be killed. Says Rabbeinu Bachai, you might say that Avram Avinu's challenge was even greater. He has to shecht his son with his own hands. Why didn't Avram Avinu get tested with suicide? But the answer is that suicide is relatively easy. Shechting your own son is just unthinkable. So therefore, b'vadai yesh raya gedola ki gadol kochu shel Avram yoser v'Yitzchak. Who would believe it? This is counterintuitive. Avram's challenge was even greater than that of Yitzchak. Yesham, our gadol kochu shel Yitzchak. Now we have a dissenting view, the love the Shabbat, and Yitzchak is greater than Avram. Why? Lefish Avram nitztava mipi Hashem. He heard the tzivur. He got a direct command. But v'zeh, meaning Yitzchak, nitztava mipi Avi. The Gadol Koach Hamunasu Shel Yitzchak. Says the Chassam Sofer on page 204. The difference between Avram and Yitzchak parallels the difference between Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebechsav we get directly from Hashem. Torah Shebal Peh are the commands of Hashem that we don't hear directly, but we receive them in an oral tradition from our Chacham. Maisa Aviv, meaning Avram, who Maisa Shel Torah Shebechsav, he got the tzivui. That's Torah Shebechsav. Yitzchak says the Chassam Sofer is Torah Shebal Peh. Shekibel as tzivui mi Avram Aviv. That's already a Kabbalah, a transmission. That's already Torah Shebal Peh. Why is it that on Rosh Hashanah we say AKEIDAH Yitzchak Berachamim Tizkar? Why the emphasis on Yitzchak? And the answer is that those who observe the Torah are observing the Torah Shebal Peh. They accept whatever the Chachamim transmit to them, the Takonos and the Gzeros. If you're not part of that transmission, if you're not committed to the tzivui, to observe the commands of the Chachamim, the Gzeros and the Syagos and the Takonos, then you shouldn't be reciting AKEIDAH Yitzchak, Berachamim Tizkar. Because the Chassam Sofer points out that AKEIDAH Yitzchak, and now I'm emphasizing Yitzchak to the exclusion of Avram, is Torah Shebal Peh. The Ritva, on the bottom of page 204, in Masechta Rosh Hashanah Tezayin, Uishum Hachi Efshar Lomar, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tiku Lefonai B'Shofar Shel Ayil. Shatem Mechavavin Mitzvah Zu Zecher LaKeidus Yisrael. The Holchem B'Drach. Unbelievable chiddush of the Ritva. The Ritva says that we ask Hashem through the shofar to remember the Isle of Yitzchak, because that's what Chibuv mitzvah is. The love of a mitzvah, the Mesiras Nefesh for a mitzvah, is taught to us by Yitzchak. And we follow in the derech of Yitzchak. And Hashem says, if you're following in the derech of Yitzchak, and that's why you're blowing a shofar shel ayil on Rosh Hashanah, then you know what? Malani alechem ki'ilu hikravtem es atzmechem lefana. It's as if you were on the AKEIDAH yourself. All this is connected to Har Sinai, the shofar of Har Sinai, the shofar of both Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Naaseh v'nishma. We will implement both Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh and Nishma, and then we'll study it. We'll get into the details. We'll see the whole sweep of the enterprise of Torah, and especially Torah Shebal Peh. So Avram representing Torah Shebachsav because he got the tzivui, Yitzchak representing Torah Shebal Peh. Together, they pool their sources, their kochos, and they create one entity. And that's Avram and Yitzchak. One last point here on the top of page 205. Avram dedicates his life to spread emunah in one God and to teach the people to separate themselves from idol worship. And it goes without saying, from human sacrifice. Hu v'Yitzchak, the two of them together, the two of them together, working in tandem, would be Makayim the Ratzon Hashem, the mitzvah of Hashem, even if it means forsaking all of the derech and the preaching and the teaching that they had until that point. Hatzivu stira lemunasam. There's no question that the tzivui of the AKEIDAH of Kachnos Pincha is absolutely contradictory to their whole belief that they're teaching. But Avram and Yitzchak are willing to fulfill the tzivui of Hashem no matter what it means. Rosh Hashanah is the first of the Aseret Yemei Tshuva. Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh L'Tshuva, first for Tshuva. What is the message? What is the goal? The ideal that we try to reach on Rosh Hashanah? It's to leave our derech behind, whatever we did last year, and to take a fresh new approach to fulfillment of the mitzvahs Hashem, disregarding any blockages that we had last year. We take it this year with a brand new energy force, and the karka is mukshar, it's ready. And Parshas Yitzchak, and Parshas AKEIDAH, and especially the Shofar, is therefore so appropriate for Rosh Hashanah. Says the Zohar, on what calendar day of the Jewish Hebrew calendar did Avram Avinu bring Yitzchak at the Akeidah? It was on Rosh Hashanah. Yiratzon, this year we have 2 days of Tkiyas Shofar. We don't have a problem with Shabbos this year. We should be zocher that the Shofar should be a hemshech of the Elo Shel Yitzchak, and all that Yitzchak and Avram teach us of Vinu, the derech that they've plowed before us. It should be a Rosh Hashanah on which, through the Shofar, we reach new heights in our avodas Hashem, a new derech, a new year, a new Rosh Hashanah, Rosh L'Tshuva. A day of Nasa v'Nishma, in which we commit ourselves to be mevatel our rotzon to the rotzon Hashem. And if we do that, then we have no doubt that God has guaranteed us that will be written in Mirz Hashem in the Sifrei Chaim for a great year to come. Can you song?
Amen. Rav, a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Please.
First of all, I'm trying just from last week. I couldn't get on last week. Where are you putting everything these days?
Since I got to Efrat, which is about almost 2.5 weeks ago, I have a new computer system. I don't have my good friend Chaim Besson here, as I did in Canada. And I'm trying to figure out when I could do this and how I could do this. I have to learn the ropes of a new computer. My laptop has been dead.
So you haven't been
to a fixer man who lives.
So you haven't been
over Dekel. He told me he would fix my laptop for 600 shekel. Chaim Besson said to me, buy a new laptop.
So
Johnny said, you know what? Spend the 600 shekels. So I'm waiting to get a call from this fellow Simcha Wachtel that he would tell me he fixed my laptop. Then I bring him over a check for 600 shekel. And I know how to use my laptop. I know how to upload shiurim. I know how to record shiurim.
So nothing's been recorded? All this stuff you've been doing?
I don't know. I pressed the record button, but I don't know whether it is recording and where to find it. I don't know if the audibility is clear. Okay. And for sure, I don't have a laptop. Yesterday, I gave my weekly shiur here in this neighborhood, Dagan, from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. I have a very nice group of young men who come. These are English speakers who are working American hours here in Israel, so they're able to come at 8:30 in the morning. And one of the fellas, a lovely guy, he offered to bring his own computer. And you can find it on YouTube. It's a shiur about the mitzvah of tzedakah.
It's under yours, Azaria Berzon?
Right, Azaria Berzon in my YouTube channel. Have you ever gone on to my YouTube channel?
Yes.
Well, I began recently to start again to try to put up shiurim on YouTube, but I have tons, and I don't even know where they are. So I don't know. I'm backpedaling. It's going to be very tough. You know, I see Daf Yomi every day, and there's a whole bunch of block that I've actually taught, and hopefully they're recorded somewhere or other. You know, in the what do they call it? The outer space of computers. What's it called?
Cyberspace.
What's it called?
Cyberspace.
Cyberspace. Excellent. Thank you so
much.
Let
me ask you a question, if I may.
Okay. So, I mean, we'll juggle this. I think David and Joe are in two different locations, so they can't really fight it out. They can only fight it out on the screen in cyberspace.
Basically, how old's your laptop? Roughly.
Are you? If I understand your question correctly, how am I doing with WhatsApp? You're asking?
No. How old is your laptop that's broken that you want to fix?
Oh, my laptop. I thought you were asking me about WhatsApp. My laptop. I'm guessing. Trying to remember when I bought it. Maybe about 5 years old.
Okay, so that means a bunch of things. Number one, according to industry statistics, the expected life of a hard drive is 3 to 5 years. That's it. If you get more than that, you're doing well. So it's probably at the end of its natural life anyway. So to fix it, I think is a bad idea. Firstly, secondly, if you do replace the hard drive, it's also possible you can't get more memory for this thing, which you probably need anyway. So I think a new machine is a better choice for you.
So let me just tell you how complicated it is for me. My son, after I waited patiently for 6 weeks. Finally, on one of his trips to America, he picked up a new laptop for me.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal, right?
What do you mean, big deal?
I know, why don't I have a new laptop? He brought it to me about 2-3 weeks ago. And
Okay,
you're gonna laugh. This is why I can't use the laptop.
right, no compatible power source.
I need what's called an adapter.
Yeah, you need an adapter, of course, for 220.
For 5 shekel, I could buy an adapter,
What's the issue then?
but I don't know where to buy one in our Efrat.
Oh, okay,
And we've
well,
been so busy making the move.
right. so
Now, I
it
don't know what you
doesn't
can see. Can you see in the background here? I mean, there are boxes here, there, and elsewhere. If you
I
go out
believe
to
it.
the living room
work. Yeah, yeah,
or upstairs, you'll see boxes all over
Right.
the place.
Yep.
Could you imagine we lived in Harno for 4 decades?
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, my wife had to downsize in 1 month
That's hard, very
for the
hard.
new renters. It's impossible. She said it's a
Sure.
year's project. So
At
we
least,
got
yep.
stuff just coming out of our ears.
Yep.
How much do you think I spent just for the movers? Close to
$5,000?
15,000 shekel just for the
Oh.
movers.
Oh, I said $5,000, not far off. Okay.
I don't know
So-
how much it costs in Canada to move an
Ju-
apartment.
Just a quick question on the shear, just a quick question on the shear before you, I'm sorry, just when you were saying with regards to the AKEIDAH, and then when he had to not leave a mark on his son, that we're supposed to look at it like non-kosher. Wouldn't you say that it's not like that? Wouldn't you say that with regards to not leaving a mark, that's not like a chok? That's like not stealing or something of that, where we're not supposed to remove ourselves. We're supposed to understand Hashem's behind the mitzvahs, but except, of course, I shouldn't steal. Of course I shouldn't kill or anything
So
like that.
that question, Joe, is a very profound question, which is addressed by the Rambam in what's called Shmona Prakim.
Good.
I remember actually when I used to come once a week to give a shir in Mizrahi on Wilson. And I noticed in the bookshelf there, I don't know if it's still there today, an English translation of the Shmona Prakim. And I was very excited because if you open up to the front page, it's dedicated in memory of my daughter-in-law's father, may rest in peace, my mechuta that I never met. He died before my son. By the way, if you want to give me a mazel tov, a day ago, my daughter-in-law gave birth to a girl, but that itself is not exciting so much,
Mazel tov.
except that it's exciting
Mazel
because
tov.
it's after 7 boys.
Wow.
And I
Mazel tov.
said, immediately when I heard this, I said, double check, make sure this is correct. The last child that she had, which was boy number 7,
Oh,
I was in Chutz La'aretz. So before I left the Chutz La'aretz, my son Binyamin comes over to me and says, Abba, we know the gender of the child, and maybe because you're not going to be here, you'll feel a little left out. So I want to tell you the gender of the child. So I said to Binyamin, you don't have to tell me the gender of the child. I know it's a boy. You had 6 boys, it'll be the 7th boy. So when he told me there's going to be a bris, I said, my kamashal and pshita. But then, in the last couple of days, my wife started saying, we had them for Shabbos last Shabbos, and my daughter-in-law was very, very pregnant, obviously. She was almost overdue. And my mother-in-law, and my wife says to me, I think she's going to have a girl. I said, come on, Charlie, you're joking. You're pulling my leg. But I heard it from my wife, and she has Ruach HaKodesh, and sure enough, we have a little team, Bubala. One thing I'll tell you, no one's going to start up with her. She has 7 brothers to protect her. So they're in
Mazel
Shaare
tov.
Tzedek Hospital. If you're interested, I'll send you a picture of the baby.
oh,
So getting back to the Simon, what Avram Avinu demonstrated by asking, let me make a little incision, a little Simon, is that he was fighting against his natural tendency, his natural love of a father for a son. He was grasping or groping, for an opportunity to prove that when he doesn't shecht his son, meaning when he fulfills the lo taseh, if you remember the lo taseh of al tishlach yod chanar, he's doing so without any admixture of his own feelings. So let me make a little simon. What are you, nuts? You're going to cut into your son's neck That's crazy. But that's going to show and demonstrate that Avraham Avinu was purely Lishma. And that, according to Rabbeinu Bachai, is even a greater challenge, the Lotas said, than the essay. And that's what the
So the cutting.
We spoke about the Chazir, that you could say, oh, for me, don't eat lobster, that's a cinch, right?
Yeah.
What's that crawling, creeping thing, right?
Yeah.
When I was in Thailand, Charlie was very curious to see all this stuff. I couldn't get myself to go near it. They sell all this stuff in the streets, by the way. Have you ever been to Thailand? It's out in the streets. They eat in the streets. All right, there's certain things they do in the house. I don't want to go into detail, but out there, the bugs and the thing that they eat, it's every time I went by there, Chabad, by the way, and you can't go to Thailand without Chabad. Chabad is right there in the middle where all the action is going on. So I went like this. Charlie was curious to see, all these different kinds of creeping creatures. So what we saw from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is that the highest madrega of avoiding a lotus is when you say, you know what, I would really like to violate the lotus, but Hashem commanded me. And that's the issue that the Rambam in the Shofar addresses. Who's greater? There's the Chassid who says, this is disgusting to me. I would never think of doing an Avera. Or is it the tzaddik who says, no, I have a Yetzer Hara and I would really like to do the Avera, but I'm going to subjugate my Yetzer. And if I remember correctly, the Rambam's final conclusion was that, I honestly, right now, it's popping out of my brain. Which one was greater according to the Rambam? Rambam, I think, concludes that that the higher madrega is when it becomes part of you. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to say. I'll try to research that for my own thing. So Mir Hashem, tonight I'm giving a shir in a shul called Mishkan Tzipora. Beautiful shul, gorgeous, in a neighborhood called Zayit. And there, we're going to study the mitzvah of Shofar, the mitzvah of Lulav, from the perspective of what's called mitzvah Baba Vera, from the Shi'urim in the mitzvah. And then tomorrow night, also in a neighborhood called Zayit, there's a fellow named Charles Sackle. He created a base medrash out of his basement. I don't know, is Yudi still on? I don't know. But Yudi will find that familiar. And he invited me to give this shir weekly on Thursday nights in his basement, in his base medrash. The shir is called, get this, From Brisk to Breslov by Berzon, the 3 B's. And what I try to do is I try to spend half the shir on a brisker yesod, and then to look into what we call Pnimius HaTorah from Rabbi Nosson of Breslov, who wrote 8 volumes, which are called Likutei Halachos. Do you have it in the Clanton Park Shul? Likutei Halachos of Rabbi Nosson?
I think it's there. I think so.
If not, I'll take it over Rabbi Spliton.
So the Rav's got to get his stuff taped. He's got to get it done. I want to hear it.
Joe, are you threatening me?
I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try again. I take a look at the YouTube's,
I've seen it.
My channel. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
And you'll see that in the last day or two, I've begun to get a little bit slowly back into the Shmona things.
Okay.
So my next challenge is going to be to see if I found, if I find all these shiurim that I've been giving in the last couple of weeks, and if they were recorded, and if I could upload them onto the YouTube.
And not onto YU Torah, you can't
Well,
put,
That's another parsha in itself. You got to get them from YouTube onto YU Torah. And I paid someone in Harnof to do that for me, but I don't know if he's still doing it. If anybody has a chance to go online on the YU Torah site into my channel and see if they're still putting up, he's in charge of my Daf Yomi shiur. So just look for Daf Yomi.
well, I went
Again, a
like
lot of Daf
Thursday.
Yomi shiurim that I gave in the last 2 weeks are not are not up on YouTube, but those that are up on YouTube, I'm paying this fellow to take them from YouTube and put them up on YU Torah. Uploading onto YU Torah is a whole parsha. It's not like you snap your finger. YouTube is a sieve. On YouTube, they don't ask you too many questions, like 3 or 4 questions. On YU, they ask you 1,001 questions. So I don't know if he's still doing it. If you could help me with that, it's a little thing, but it would help. Try to find out if he's still uploading my Daf Yomi shiur. Again, don't look at the last 2 days, like look in like 2 weeks ago and a week ago.
Okay,
No. Actually, that's a mistake what I just said. No, the last 2 weeks he couldn't have uploaded it because I didn't upload it onto YouTube. So he couldn't have uploaded it onto YU Torah. I'm paying him to upload it from YouTube to YU Torah.
got it.
I'll tell you what you could do. I uploaded the last 2 days of Daf Yomi, that's 68 and 69, I think it is, onto YouTube. So check out and see if that appears on YU Torah. Okay, there are both sides. So
Okay,
thank you
thank
so
you, Raj.
much. And,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
you know, my
Okay.
wife and I might be in New York for Sukkot. If anyone is down south in New York for Sukkot, maybe we can get together.
Down south.
But
Okay,
my mother-in-law is not feeling well, so we want to spend perhaps Sukkot with her.
that's fine.
Okay, cool.
Okay,